Something is happening inside the global car industry that most buyers have no idea about. Behind the glossy showrooms, the aggressive advertising, and the carefully polished brand images, there is a deeper reality playing out. One that affects resale values, long-term reliability, parts availability, and the simple question of whether the company behind your car is going to be around in 5 years. And that question matters more in 2026 than it ever has before. Because the automotive world is going through a transformation so fast, so expensive, and so unforgiving, that even brands with decades of history are starting to crack under the pressure. Electric vehicle development doesn't come cheap. We're talking billions of dollars in investment before a single car even reaches a dealership. At the same time, traditional gasoline models are facing increasing regulatory pressure in markets around the world. And on top of that, new competitors from Asia are entering segments that legacy manufacturers used to own completely. Some companies are handling all of this brilliantly. Others are quietly falling apart. Today, we're counting down 6 car brands that many industry analysts believe are losing the battle. Brands showing real warning signs. Signs that, if you're thinking about buying a car in 2026, you absolutely need to know about before you sign anything. And trust us, the brand at number 1 is going to surprise you. So let's get into it. Starting things off at number 6 on our list, and this one might raise a few eyebrows, is Mitsubishi. Now, there was a time when the name Mitsubishi carried serious weight in the automotive world. Think back to the Eclipse, the Lancer evolution, the Pajero. These were vehicles that had genuine enthusiast credibility, real engineering ambition, and a global presence that made the brand feel important. That era feels very distant now. Over the last 10 years, Mitsubishi has retreated from market after market. Models that were once global staples have been quietly discontinued. In several regions, dealership networks have shrunk to a fraction of what they once were. And the vehicles that remain in the lineup? Many of them are built on shared platforms developed in partnership with Renault and Nissan, which raises a real question about how much of the Mitsubishi identity still exists in the cars carrying that badge. None of this means Mitsubishi builds bad vehicles right now. The Outlander has been reasonably well received. The Eclipse Cross has its supporters. But here's the problem. In the automotive industry, brand momentum matters. Investment matters. Commitment matters. And right now, Mitsubishi does not look like a brand that is charging forward with confidence. It looks like a brand that is managing a slow decline rather than reversing it. For buyers, that creates real risks. If the brand continues to shrink, resale values suffer. Dealer support becomes harder to find, and long-term parts availability becomes a genuine concern. These might not be problems you feel on day 1 of ownership, but they are problems you could absolutely feel by year 5 or year 6. That's why Mitsubishi opens this list. Moving up to number 5, and this is a brand that a lot of people genuinely love, which makes the story all the more difficult to tell. Infiniti. When Nissan launched Infiniti back in 1989, the idea was bold. Take the engineering foundation of a mainstream Japanese manufacturer, elevate it with premium materials, refined comfort, and a level of dealer service that could compete directly with European luxury brands. For a while, it actually worked. The G35 became a genuine cult classic. The FX crossover was genuinely ahead of its time, and Infiniti carved out a real position in the luxury segment. But then something shifted. While Lexus sharpened its product lineup and Acura leaned harder into performance, Infiniti seemed to lose the thread. The design language became polarizing. The electrification strategy stalled. And in several major markets, including Western Europe, the brand quietly pulled out entirely. That last point deserves to be said clearly. Because it matters. When a luxury brand exits an entire continent, that is not a minor adjustment. That is a signal that the business model isn't working the way it was supposed to. Today, Infiniti still sells vehicles, and those vehicles are, by most objective measures, comfortable, well-built, and reasonably reliable. But the brand around them is shrinking. Fewer markets, fewer models, fewer resources being invested in the next generation of product. For anyone thinking about an Infiniti right now, the vehicles themselves might be fine. But luxury car ownership is a long game, and in a segment where brand stability, strong resale value, and a dealer network you can rely on are absolutely essential, Infiniti is showing cracks that are hard to ignore. Number 4 on our countdown is a name that carries more historical prestige than almost any other on this list. Jaguar. Few brands in automotive history have the legacy that Jaguar does. The E-Type, the XJ6, the XKR. These are vehicles that defined what a certain kind of automotive excellence looked like for generations. Elegant, British, unapologetically distinctive. And yet, the modern chapter of Jaguar's story is one of the most turbulent in the luxury car world. Sales have been volatile for years. Several beloved models have been discontinued. The XE, the XF, the F-Type. A lineup that not long ago felt like the foundation of a legitimate luxury brand is now largely gone. And in their place, an announcement, a vision, a brand pivot so dramatic that Jaguar essentially stopped selling cars in key markets for an extended period, while it worked out what came next. The strategy, as the company has described it, is to relaunch Jaguar as an ultra-premium electric brand, targeting a higher price point, fewer customers, bolder design. Maybe that works. Maybe in 3 or 4 years, the new Jaguar lineup is genuinely compelling and the gamble pays off. But right now, in 2026, the uncertainty around this brand is enormous. Dealership networks have been restructured. The traditional Jaguar customer has been left without a clear product to buy. And the new vision hasn't fully materialized yet. Buying into a brand in the middle of this kind of transformation is a risk. And for most buyers, risk is the last thing they want from a luxury vehicle purchase. We're now in the top 3, and number 3 is where things get genuinely unexpected. Because number 3 is Nissan. And before you dismiss that, hear us out. Because the numbers behind this story are serious. Nissan is one of the largest automakers in the world by volume. It has iconic models that millions of people buy every year. The Rogue, the Altima, the Frontier. The brand has global reach that most manufacturers can only dream about. And yet, underneath all of that scale, Nissan has been dealing with a financial and strategic crisis that has been building for years. It started with the fallout from the Carlos Ghosn era. The legal chaos, the leadership vacuum, the questions about how the company was actually being run. All of that shook Nissan's foundations in ways that are still being felt today. The company has gone through multiple rounds of restructuring. Factories have been closed. Workforce reductions have been announced in markets around the world. And the financial pressure has been relentless. Nissan's profit margins have been far below what a company of its size should be generating. Investment in electrification has lagged behind competitors. And the alliance with Renault and Mitsubishi, which was supposed to be a source of strength, has been complicated by internal tensions that have made coordinated strategy difficult. The vehicles Nissan makes are not bad. Many of them are genuinely competitive in their segments. But a car brand is not just the car. It's the company behind it. The investment going into future products, the stability of the dealer network, the confidence that the badge on your vehicle will still mean something in 10 years. And right now, Nissan's future is not as certain as its past would suggest. Number 2. And this one is a story about a great American name being reduced to almost nothing. Chrysler. At its peak, Chrysler was one of the defining names in American automotive history. It competed at the highest levels. It survived crises that would have destroyed lesser companies. It built vehicles that millions of Americans grew up with and remained loyal to across generations. Today, Chrysler essentially sells one vehicle. One, the Pacifica minivan. And to be fair to the Pacifica, it is a genuinely good vehicle. Well-designed, practical, and in its plug-in hybrid form, genuinely forward-thinking for its segment. If you need a minivan, the Pacifica is a serious option. But that's exactly the point. One vehicle is not a brand. One vehicle is a product. And an automotive brand built around a single nameplate is extraordinarily vulnerable to any shift in consumer taste, any supply chain disruption, any strategic change from its parent company. Chrysler sits inside the Stellantis group, which manages more than a dozen brands across multiple continents. In that kind of corporate structure, resources follow priority. Investment goes where the returns are strongest. And a brand that produces one model in one segment does not carry a lot of leverage in those conversations. For buyers, the question isn't whether the Pacifica is a good car right now. It probably is. The question is, what happens to Chrysler 5 years from now? And that question does not have a reassuring answer. And now we arrive at number 1. And this is where the story gets complicated. Because number 1 isn't a single brand that's quietly failing in the background. Number 1 is Stellantis itself. And the reason that matters is simple. Stellantis is the parent company behind some of the most recognizable names in the automotive world. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, Opel. These are brands that hundreds of millions of people around the world have driven, owned, and trusted for decades. And right now, Stellantis is under enormous pressure. Sales have declined significantly in key markets. North America, which should be one of the group's strongest regions, has seen major drops in volume. Inventory has piled up at dealerships. Relationships with dealer networks have become openly contentious, with some dealers publicly criticizing the company's strategy and pricing decisions. At the leadership level, the company has gone through a turbulent period. A CEO transition, internal disagreements about direction, and a fundamental strategic challenge that affects every brand under the Stellantis umbrella. Because here is the core problem. Stellantis needs to invest massively in electrification to remain competitive in markets that are moving toward EVs. At the same time, its traditional gasoline models are facing pricing and volume pressure. Doing both simultaneously, at scale, across more than a dozen brands operating in dozens of countries, requires a level of financial strength and operational clarity that the company is currently struggling to demonstrate. What does this mean for you as a buyer? If you're looking at a Jeep, a Dodge, a Ram, a Fiat, an Alfa Romeo, you are looking at a vehicle backed by a parent company that is under serious strain. That doesn't mean your car will fall apart. It doesn't mean your dealer will disappear tomorrow. But it does mean that the long-term stability of every brand inside that group is tied to decisions being made right now at the very top of Stellantis. And those decisions are not going well. So what does all of this actually mean if you're in the market for a new vehicle right now? It means that buying a car in 2026 requires a level of due diligence that it simply didn't a decade ago. The old assumptions no longer hold. A brand with 100 years of history is not automatically safe. A badge that once stood for prestige or reliability doesn't guarantee that the company behind it is healthy today. Before you commit to any vehicle purchase, look beyond the spec sheet and the showroom experience. Look at the parent company's financial performance. Look at whether the brand is investing in new products or quietly reducing its lineup. Look at resale values over the last 2 or 3 years. Look at what industry analysts are saying about the brand's long-term direction. Because when you buy a car, you're not just buying transportation. You're making a long-term relationship with a brand and the company behind it. Service, parts, warranty support, future trade-in value. All of these things depend on that brand still being strong 5, 8, 10 years down the road. And in an industry changing this fast, that kind of stability is earned, not assumed. If this breakdown helped you see the market a little more clearly, drop a comment below and let us know which brand surprised you the most. And if you want to stay ahead of what's actually happening in the automotive world in 2026, make sure you're subscribed, because there is a lot more to cover.